Well, this government clearly has made everyone happy and satisfied as well, be it the markets, the international credit rating agencies, which were clearly watching as to what India is going to do as far as its fiscal roadmap is concerned, considering what's happening as far as the global economy is concerned. But the finance minister today has managed to stick to the fiscal roadmap, not just for the current year, but for the next 2 financial years as well. So what was really the focus of this particular budget and what is the intention behind it? To discuss with us, we have right now Dr. Arvind Subramanian, Chief Economic Advisor, Department of Economic Affairs, and Mr. Ratan P Watal, Finance Secretary and Expenditure Secretary with the Government of India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on NDTV. Firstly, to you, Dr. Subramanian. Now, one question, or rather thing that everyone was eyeing out for, that was the fiscal deficit. Now, the roadmap, the government has adhered to that particular roadmap, not just for the current financial year, but for the next 2 financial years as well. As we all know that this assumption was made taking into consideration that GST rollout is going to happen from 1st of April 2016. Do you think it's going to be a tightrope walk going forward?
Sorry, let me kind of rephrase the question and maybe answer it in a slightly different way. I think that for this year, the government is clear that it's going to meet the fiscal target set to it for 3.5%. And that's critical at a time when the global economy is uncertain. It was considered necessary and prudent that we remain a kind of, we build firewalls against any possible, kind of backlash from what happens internationally. Now, at the same time, the government has also said that for a number of, really exogenous reasons, unrelated reasons, it is time to review the medium-term framework. So what that medium-term framework will say going forward, we have to wait and see. And the GST is a little bit unrelated. GST, the government is just committed to implementing that. Hopefully, in this coming session, the constitutional amendment will go through, and then the follow-up legislation and implementation can happen thereafter.
Right. Dr. Subramanian, in your economic survey as well, you mentioned about the medium-term framework, but of course stayed away from giving much more details. Mr. Watal, why don't you come in here and give us some sense as to what is it that we can really expect as far as this medium framework that we are talking about, and also the kind of range probably that we could consider going forward when it comes to instead of having the fiscal deficit target.
I won't react to the range and these other issues. I'll take you back. The FRBM, or this Fiscal Management Act, as we look at it, is something which is about 10 years old. It was made applicable not only to the central government, but state governments also had their own fiscal management acts. And in the 13th Finance Commission, the entire devolution framework which had been worked out in the previous Finance Commission, this fiscal management issue, which had been embedded into the way the states were doing and the way the central government was managing its affairs, has in a sense worked pretty well. Now, there was a problem last year. As you know, and Dr. Subramanian also said that the world situation was a little grim in terms of development and growth. A decision was taken to basically, as far as the fiscal glide was concerned, to give it a slight break and try to achieve 3.9% as the fiscal target for this year. We still have 1 month left. And the whole idea was to give a fillip to public investment. Right. And I think to that extent, the government has achieved a lot. We have kept to our target of 3.9, which is something which internationally people are also looking at. It's a question of a credibility issue. And the finance minister had also said that after giving this gap of this little break of 3.9, he would again be on track and achieve the target of 3.5. Now, there was a debate within the ministry, and there were views that perhaps this framework has to be revisited in a certain sense. There were views that perhaps this is the only anchor which we should look at and just stick to it. There was another point of view, no, it shouldn't be done this way. Well, the decision which has been taken is that there will be a committee which will look at this entire thing while we adhere to the 3.5. And also we have taken measures. I mean, you mentioned revenue, in a sense, what's going to happen this year. We will be getting enough resources where we have increased the amount of the amount of money which will require for public spending this year. While doing that, we've done this balancing act. We will achieve this 3.5 target. We will set up this committee, which will then go into these issues of how this framework has to be worked out, perhaps by before the next budget.
Okay, so and that committee is expected to be set up?
Well, very soon, yeah.
Right. Dr. Subramanian, while we understand that rural story definitely needed a lot of focus, but at the same time, this government was being tagged as Sood Boot Ki Sarkar. So the kind of focus this budget has given to the rural sector particularly, do you think it's in some way or the other also a measure or a means to probably remove that tag from itself, and because it has also been called as a political budget this time? What would you say about it?
No, I think that, I think it's absolutely clear that after 4 successive seasons of monsoon shortfall, there was real farm income distress, right? So I think there was a clear sense that we needed to help the farm sector, whether it was, I think it's completely unrelated to politics. The intrinsic merits were there clearly. But to do it in a way, I think that achieves 2 things. One, you provide, insurance for the farmers against downfall, and that's why the Fasal Bima Yojana is such an important step. But at the same time, you also want to invest in agriculture in a way that builds assets and creates the conditions for farm incomes to grow rapidly in the future. And so, for example, the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, which is everyone has shown, research shows that, the returns on this is very high because farmers get connected to markets, what they get goes up, the incomes go up dramatically. And for that, the amount, the outlay has more than doubled for that. So I think that's one. Again, NREGA, we know that it has, certain desirable features like it's self-targeting, but at the same time, the emphasis is to create assets in that. So cushion agriculture farmers against the downside through insurance, and then provide the asset creation mechanism so that their long-run income can improve. So that's where it is, and it has to do entirely with what's happening in the farm sector.
Also, the finance minister today announced that the aim is to double the income of the farmers in the next 5 years by 2022. Is it something similar to what the Congress did, which actually led to increasing the MSPs, which actually led to a high inflation? Do you think we are likely to land up in that kind of a situation? Is that the idea behind it, increasing MSPs? What exactly is going to be the way through which we are looking to double farmers' income, and how is it really going to happen, looking at current farm productivity that we are seeing?
So I think that, the key thing, I think a couple of things. One is you have to build assets, and because assets create improved productivity in the long run. So I think that's one. Second, creating a single market in agriculture, because, now, what the farmers get and what prices they're sold at, there's wide variation. So I think that's another thing. The third thing, of course, is, we need to also increase production of pulses, which has been a source of inflation and so on. And also dietary patterns are moving towards protein. So there's a big emphasis on pulses production as well. And so all these combined is what will increase farm incomes.
There was a brief mention about incentives to pulses growing farmers. Could you just help us understand what kind of incentives are we looking forward to? Something similar to that was being given to cereals?
I think
So I think that, already what's been done in the last 2 seasons is that the MSP for pulses have been increased quite substantially. Right? So to provide, and in fact, sowings have increased on pulses. But I think that needs to be backed up with procurement.
Okay.
Yeah, so that farmers have the assurance that if they produce, it will actually be bought at a certain guaranteed price. Now, the infrastructure for procurement for cereals is very good. For pulses, we're trying to improve that. And that's why you will see also in the budget, there are a series of measures for state level procurement. So just beefing up. So it's a combination of higher MSPs plus the procurement infrastructure to improve that so that farmers can be assured, and then they will respond by planting more, and then the incomes will grow up, and that will happen.
So will there be a balancing act again between cereals and pulses, or you will be slowly going, going away from giving more incentives as far as cereals are concerned and focusing just on the pulses? Is that the mindset? Because of course the eating pattern, the dietary habits, as you mentioned, these are also changing. Is that the long-term vision that you have?
Yeah, I think that the long-term vision is that, we've achieved a lot of success in cereals, and we have good buffer stocks. So we want to, certainly increase, the emphasis on pulses, because we need to do that. Yeah.
You want to add to it?
I just want to come in, in the beginning you mentioned that this is a political budget, and then you started talking about the agriculture sector, which was explained, which of course is a focus of not only the budget but also of the government. But I must tell you that if you look at the taxonomy of the budget, there's a huge emphasis on other sectors also. I mean, you take railways, you have a planned budget of nearly 1.2 lakh crores,
right,
out of which 45,000 crores is being given plainly as GBS support. You have roads, in which inclusive of bonds and what the government will give in the road sector, not including Gram Sadak Yojana, which could be in the rural areas. These are national highways and things. The amount of money which will be put in over there will be touching nearly 1 lakh of crores. So we are talking of investments just in these two sectors which are more than 2 lakh crores. Apart from that, the kind of incentives which are being given to food processing, to other industries. So it's not, what you mentioned, that it's basically a populist budget which is looking at the agriculture sector and money is being pumped in there. There also, as Arvind said, it's basically asset creation, capital investments. But on this side also, it's across the board that the focus. It's basically a growth
Probably
with equity is really our aim.
Rural was one word which got the maximum attention and mentioned the budget, and that's
important.
why.
I mean,
right.
it is important.
Another key area, and last question, because we are running out of time, was on banks. The street has been, the stock market has been disappointed because of the allocation that has been made in this particular budget. The expectation was, as you also mentioned in your eco survey, that that's the critical part, recapitalization. Why has the number not really gone up, and what are the other resources is the government looking to work on to provide resources, capital to these banks?
Well, here also, I think the FM has made a commitment that he has provided 25,000 crores for recapitalization.
Actually, market was looking for much beyond that 25,000.
He said that if required, more will be given.
Okay.
There are other issues where there's engagement which is going on with the DFS, the Department of Financial Services, with the Reserve Bank of India, and a lot of slew of measures which are being contemplated. And it's a continuum. Last year we gave in about 15,000 crores in this area, and it's been, there's a huge jump. 15 to 25 is not a small number, and with a commitment that more will be provided if it's required.
Any range that you have, any number that you have set aside?
Depend on
and what are the other resources that we'll be using to increase the capital? Will it be like a supplementary grant, extra money from the government side, or you will be mobilizing some other resources in terms of providing?
We have to wait and see when this happens. But I think the key thing there is that, look, there is a multi-pronged approach to this. The RBI is doing its asset quality review. We've provided resources under Indradhanush and what the government is committed to, FM is committed to in this budget. We will see over the next few months how this is going. If it's going well, we continue with it. And if mid-course corrections need to take place, including, as the FM said, in terms of more resources, we'll make those corrections.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking to us.